Today is May 11th, 2011, and I'm interviewing John Mowen in Stillwater, a longtime OSU professor whose career illustrates how multidimensional some OSU faculty are. John, you've taught, you've published widely. You have also done a lot of digital artwork, and now you're planning to retire and spend some time just open to whatever new adventures arrive. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Charlottesville, Virginia, many years ago, and spent the first basically decade of my life there, and then my family moved over the mountain to a place called Waynesboro, Virginia, in the Shenandoah Valley, and grew up there, and then went to College of William and Mary for my undergraduate work. This was during the Vietnam era, and was an ROTC and so forth in college.
A lot of times, well, what did your folks do for a living? Let's start with that.
My dad was an optician, and it was during that time when they actually called opticians doctors. They were really craftsmen because they were making their own lenses and so forth. And my mom worked off and on, but was pretty much a classic stay-at-home housewife of the 1950s, if you will.
Well, a lot of times our passions and interests kind of emerge early in our childhood, and I'm wondering if that was your experience.
Actually, I'm told that I had some artistic ability when I was very young, in first, second, third grade, that type of thing. But then got involved in sports, and so really spent the majority of elementary school and junior high and high school, frankly, as a jock, and so that was my focus during that time period. To some extent academics, but I thought I was going to be a professional basketball player, and it was completely absurd when I think back about it, but that was my goal during that time period.
How did you end up at William and Mary College?
Well, it came down to a choice between University of Virginia and William and Mary, and living in Waynesboro, which is just 25 miles from Charlottesville. I wanted to get as far away from my family as possible, but you have to go to a state school. And William and Mary is a state school. We couldn't afford anything more than that, certainly, but it's a great school. Changed my life, absolutely. And so that's how I ended up there.
I think a lot of people will understand that reasoning. You were a psychology major when you declared a major, I guess. What interested you in psychology at that time?
Well, I suspect, like a lot of people who end up in psychology, you're trying to figure out yourself in part. Also, in part, it was a professor who I had when I took an introductory psychology course who I thought was absolutely incredible. And I actually entered thinking I was going to major in one of the business areas, as a matter of fact. But I just found it really, really fun and interesting, and it's nice to know what makes people tick.
You shared in an interview that you got a D in English Comp, which kind of helped motivate you set your standards higher for your writing. And I'm wondering, how did your writing change after that?
Well, it's the professor, in fact, is named David Holmes, and a very famous professor at William and Mary, who incidentally is retiring this year as well. And I was trying to think the other day how much older than he is than I am, probably 10 years, something like that. But what it did is make me pay a lot of attention to the construction of sentences, just kind of basic writing skills. I was always loved to write in high school, but no one really pinned me down and made me pay attention to grammar and to paragraph construction, just the basic things. And Professor Holmes, absolutely. If you made one comma splice, it was a D, two was an F. Or one run-on sentence was a D, two was an F. And the first 3 or 4 papers I got were Fs. And of course, it makes you changed very quickly.
Right. You helped put yourself through college, I read, by working in the library. What was that like?
Well, I had a number of different jobs. The library, I hashed food in the student union as well. Ended up taking ROTC scholarship to help pay myself through as well. And my parents' business had a very rough spell during that particular time period. And if I didn't find a way to put my way through college, I was going to be a grunt in Vietnam. And so it's amazing what you come up with under those circumstances.
When you, after you'd served in Vietnam and came back, how did that experience shape your thinking about what you wanted to do?
Well, when I actually applied to graduate school from Vietnam, and I cannot say enough about how important my wife was at that time. I was married at that time, and she really did the work of getting the applications out and so forth. But I went to graduate school in social psychology with the thought of looking at basically violence and what causes violence and so forth. And I ended up working as a research assistant in a criminal justice program while I was in my doctoral program, in fact. But the military, in particular, going through Ranger School and that type of thing, when I left, in fact, the colonel told me, if there's anything that you've learned to do, Captain Mowen, is to get up early in the morning. So it's just stuff like that you remember, and you realize and learn that you can work a lot harder than you really realize you possibly can.
You were in graduate school, I believe, at Arizona State.
Correct,
is that
yes.
Right? Arizona State University. And you found out there were more aspiring teachers of psychology than there were teaching positions. So you had to go in another direction, and I wonder if you'd take us through your thinking process.
Yeah, when I got my PhD in 1977, many years ago now, and there were like 400 applications for social psychology positions, and there were 4 positions open in the country. And so that gives you a hint that you need to look into other things. And so I looked at a variety of things, and with the government, and applied for some jobs with the government as a psychologist. But I had a close friend who was in a marketing doctoral program at Arizona State, and he suggested that why don't I consider that. And so he introduced me to some people in the business college, and then ended up doing a postdoc in marketing. And it was the best career move I could have possibly made, because I basically do applied psychology is what I do as a marketing professor. And with a lot more jobs available, it was exactly the opposite, because business programs were expanding at the time. And I was fortunate enough that Oklahoma State invited me here.
So this was the first place you taught. What did you know about Oklahoma before you came here?
Well, my wife told me not to tell the story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. She'll kill me. But we drove from Virginia, actually, to Arizona State for graduate school, and we drove across I-40. And it was in early August. It was incredibly hot, and we went across this state that took forever to get across. It was brown and just very, very hot and muggy. And we got out of the state, and we said, if there's any place we'll never end up, it's Oklahoma. And so that was the first experience. But of course, I-40 is not the way to go across the state and appreciate a place like Stillwater, which is an oasis on the prairie. Please make sure you get that in there after the story. But when I interviewed here, you could tell how great the people were, how friendly they are, what a down-to-earth place it is. Actually, the culture of Oklahoma is very similar to the culture of Virginia, where I grew up, quite conservative. And so it frankly felt very comfortable here.
What was the department you were in? What was that like when you first arrived?
Well, the business college has changed a lot since I got to Oklahoma State. When I arrived in 1978, I went into a very large department called Administrative Sciences. And so it combined management, finance, marketing, MIS as well into one large kind of unwieldy department. But in another way, it was good because you were exposed to people of all different interests and so forth. As a social psychologist, I had interest not only in marketing but in organizational behavior as well, and published some with some individuals in the management department that eventually came out. So it was actually very comfortable, and my psychology background actually put me ahead of the field of marketing because they were borrowing ideas from psychology. It's really, in a sense, psychological field, and so it was frankly quite comfortable.
And that was a question I had for you. You know, you had sort of come with this background in psychology, so what you were bringing to the department or the program was kind of unique or distinctive.
Well, it was, but it's without some controversy as well, because I think some individuals in the department were wondering, why bring in this person who's probably liberal and probably will hold, some type of walks, around campus or sit-ins or something like that. It was amazing when I got to my graduate program from the military, of course, going into psychology. From the military, they were suspicious of me as, having just come from Vietnam and so forth. Who is this strange, person, probably this right-wing radical. And so I was viewed as a conservative person in the psych department, and I get here, and now I'm the liberal in a business college. So it was actually very entertaining, frankly.
Okay, so just to get that straight, you were viewed as having been conservative because of your Vietnam experience.
Well, and psych departments are very liberal, and so anybody who is sort of in the middle, I'm political independent. I consider myself quite middle of the road on most things, and so any extreme will view as the opposite way.
Who were some of the major forces in the department when you arrived?
Well, I cannot say enough about the department chairman at the time, an individual named Wayne Meinhardt. He is he's passed away now, which is a very sad thing. And he's really the principal person that I think helped me get to Oklahoma State. A very bright individual with just a wonderfully huge vocabulary. It was great to be around Wayne. And so he was certainly a very important individual. Another person, actually in the management department as well, is a person named Dennis Middlemist. And I actually knew of Dennis's research as a doctoral student, as a matter of fact. And that was one of the things that attracted me to Oklahoma State. He had published in one of the major social psych journals. And so I thought, well, this can't be all bad, if somebody in a business college that I would be colleagues with, and we ended up publishing an article together. And so there were individuals that he felt very comfortable with. We also brought in an individual at the same time as myself, Jim Gentry, and Jim and I had a lot of the same priorities, if you will, same goals for the department, and so it was great to work with him as well.
Well, one of your contributions was you created this theoretical model for consumer psychology called the 3M model of motivation and personality.
Right.
And I wonder if you could summarize that for us briefly, or?
Yeah. This was actually about the last 15 years of my career. I worked on this. One of the issues in looking at personality and motivation is that there are many different theories out there. There are many different personality scales. And people have measured, everything from, in marketing, you'll measure coupon proneness, an enduring propensity to collect coupons. And then there'll be another measure of a very general type of trait like conscientiousness or openness to experience. And there's been no way of classifying or categorizing these various personality traits and making sense. And there's literally hundreds of them. And how do you conceptualize them or can categorize them? And that's one of the goals of the 3M model was to come up with a structure for how you would identify personality traits and how they're related to each other. It's an evolutionary psychology perspective, so just like you can talk about the evolution of the human species in terms of our physical characteristics, you can talk about it also in terms of our personality. Why are some people introverts and some people extroverts? Why are some people more risk-taking than others? And so the evolutionary psychological approach is built into it. And so I've asked, why, for example, why are people materialistic? In the United States culture, we are quite materialistic as a culture. And my argument is that without material resources, the human species would not have survived. We needed to have clothing, we needed to have tools and weapons and shelter and so forth. So without a drive to collect material things, as a species, we would not have survived. And so it's built into our genetic structure to want material things. It's when it becomes extreme that you begin to getting the problems. And so it's built in part around evolutionary psychology, and then you link levels of traits with each other. And so, for example, you might have a trait of somebody who is ecologically conscious and is very concerned about the environment. Well, that's a very specific, concrete thing. What are more general traits that might lead to that? And so it's a structure for looking at how a system of traits influences behavior.
And I was wondering, if your model, it already sounds like it's multifunctional, if it could be used by consumers to kind of understand why they were making choices they were making, and modify their behavior if they wanted. It wasn't just for marketing.
No, it's a very general, it is a psychological theory. And you can use it to help understand what motivates yourself. And we've looked at, and I have to emphasize, this is a collegial thing. I've worked with many colleagues, many doctoral students in developing this and publishing it. So it's not just myself. But we've looked at things like what are the characteristics of compulsive buyers? And so are there then, knowing those characteristics, what kind of treatments can you use to help assist them? How do you recognize it in yourself? If you are in public policy, what kind of messages might you construct to try to avoid compulsive buying? But we've looked at things from why do people, or a tendency to have plastic surgery is another one. We've looked at characteristics of aggressive drivers or of distracted drivers. We've looked at the characteristics of high quality service workers. What makes a customer oriented service worker? And so it's a very general model that you can use to predict most anything that you're really interested in. It's been a fun journey.
That sounds fascinating. You've published a number of books and articles since you've been here. You've also been an outstanding teacher, and you are a digital artist. So I was wondering how you juggle writing, teaching, and artwork, and I forgot community service too. What is your secret?
Well, what is the secret? One is you can't do everything at once. And so I will go through time periods where, for example, this was the very late 1980s, I felt like I really needed to do something with the community and give back, basically. And so there was a wonderful woman in Stillwater named Mary Ruth Anderson who ran the Action Agency in town. I'd heard about her and went to her and said, hey, I'd like to help. You have some ideas on how I can help? And she said, well, we're trying to start a shelter for the homeless in town. Would you like to be a part of that? And so I became part of the advisory board, and a group of us raised the money and so forth to get the shelter, Mission of Hope Shelter for the Homeless started. And that kind of then evolved into working with United Way and the Chamber of Commerce and things like that. And so that was a period of about 10 years worth of big focus on that. And then in about 2000, my wife made the mistake of giving me for Christmas a digital camera and some software, Photoshop software, and a printer. And so I started playing with that, and the next thing I knew, that became an addiction. And so nights and weekends would be spent playing with Photoshop and just learning it through trial and error, and then started printing some things and then showing to some people, and they said, hey, this is pretty good. And I'd always liked art before, and so next thing you know, I'm trying to get into galleries and creating images, and so it was a very interesting journey for about 6 or 8 years.
You've described your teaching itself as a helping profession. Can you expand on that a little more?
Yeah. As a professor, you have a lot of responsibilities, you know, and one of them is your students come in, and you need to think, at least my belief is, you need to think of it as trying to help them move from point A to point B, and you have to have empathy for them, but you also have to challenge them at the same time, and that's the very difficult thing, is the challenge while trying to connect with them as well. When I was in college, my freshman year, in fact, the same professor, David Holmes, who is a Episcopal minister, as it turns out. Well, he was teaching English courses, an Episcopal minister, and he was talking to me about becoming a minister. And so I was really seriously thinking about going that direction. And it turns out that was not a good direction to go, but the same reasons why I was interested in becoming a minister, which is a helping profession, and where you're doing public speaking and trying to educate and so forth, is the reason why I'm a professor now. Those same qualities fit the professorship as well as being a minister.
What is the most gratifying or what's one highlight experience that you might have had with a student in terms of?
Well, I have to say that two come to mind. One is kind of a wow experience where I was reading an article about our Olympic winning wrestling coach, John Smith, you know, an incredible athlete who is, you know, you just say, and it's an amazing person, and I had him in class when he was a student here. And then this is maybe while he was coaching as a wrestling coach for us maybe a decade ago or so, he said, who are my two favorite instructors at OSU? And one of them was me. And it was like, wow, I never even knew he liked me, you know. And so that was a thrill, I have to say. But I've done a lot of work with doctoral students, and that's extremely gratifying to see a doctoral student come in. Their first year, they're raw, they don't know how to do research, even how to think like a researcher, because most of them have MBAs, and how you think as a business person, as an MBA, is very different from how you think as a researcher. And then to watch them go through and learn the process of doing research and how to think like a researcher, and then you place them in positions and just watching them grow and then develop as a professional. One of my students became the president of the American Marketing Association, for example. And that's just a really great feeling to see people who you mentor succeed.
How has your teaching nourished your scholarship?
Well, the two go hand in hand in many respects. I certainly use my scholarship to inform my teaching, and what you try to do is go beyond the textbooks. And I did have a consumer behavior textbook, which is a course I've taught many times, but you're always thinking about how do you improve the textbook, how do you go beyond the textbook. But also just the process of trying to communicate as well and get the ideas across, it really grounds you, and it makes you realize that you can't be talking at 10,000 feet. You really have to be down on the ground talking to people in a way that they can understand. And if you can't explain your research to your student or to your mom, for example, you wonder there's a problem there if you can't explain it.
What's one memory of your community service work that stands out for you?
Well, there's the good things and there's the bad things, if you will. The good things particularly occurred when I was president of the Stillwater United Way. And you can see, you always want to, as a leadership position, leave the organization in a better position than you came in. And so I feel like I was able to do that by, for example, just doing some spreadsheet analysis and some very basic kind of business things, and then working with the other individuals in the board of directors, and everybody was pulling together for exactly the same purpose. You were helping agencies that are helping people in desperate need, and that just really felt great. On the other side of the coin, my experience with the Chamber of Commerce, which is a great organization, but at that particular time, there were some incredible political things happening. And as a very apolitical person, I found that very challenging and difficult and not pleasant to get through.
What do you consider one of your most important academic awards?
Well, there are probably two that I would identify. One is I did receive the Eminent Professor Award at OSU in 2002, which ostensibly goes to the most eminent faculty member on campus, and that was very gratifying, and just to be recognized in that way. The other is to be elected as a fellow of the Society for Consumer Psychology, and that's kind of the major organization in the field I'm in. I was president of the organization at one point, and then to be elected fellow was a great feeling, and it indicates that you have had an impact on the field.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could just explain what it means to be a fellow.
Well, it's an award that goes to very few people in a particular field, and it's a recognition of outstanding scholarship and service to a field. And so, with the articles that I published in the area and the textbook, which was well received in the area, and then being the president of the organization, that has a good chance of leading you to that position.
Well, congratulations on that. You were a Regents Professor for the College of Business. Is that correct?
I am a Regents Professor.
Are?
I will always be a Regents Professor, if not emeritus Professor.
Okay. And you were awarded the Poole Excellence in Scholarship in 2009. And then also you were a Noble Foundation Chair. And I'm wondering if you can explain a little bit more about the latter, why the Noble Foundation set up this chairship.
Yeah. One of the things that particularly, all departments on the college campus, particularly business colleges, is to recognize faculty members who are, and it's generally doing extremely well in research. Occasionally you'll see it for instruction, but it's generally for research. And deans and department heads will work with foundations and other organizations, businesses, to raise funds for these professorships and chairs. And it's a way of providing extra funds for travel, for various scholarship things you do. There can be a bump in salary to try to keep you up with your peers across the country. And so it's quite an honor to receive a professorship, or particularly a chair. And so I was fortunate enough to receive the Noble Foundation chair. Let me just say a little bit about Regents Professors. There are about 50 on campus, and it's an organization. It's now an organization that, it's literally a position. Assistant professors, associate professors, full professors, and Regents Professors is the highest level of professorships. And again, that tends to go to, or does go to, individuals who've had some sort of major impact in their particular fields. One of the things I have to say I'm proud of doing is that a group of us started a Regents Professor organization. There had not been one until over a decade ago, when a group of us put it together. And the idea of this organization, which now has bylaws and meets and so forth, is to try to promote scholarship at OSU with this particular group.
So you'll continue your involvement with them?
And frankly, that's unlikely. My intention is to go on a new adventure. I do hope, however, I've gotten very interested in the general area of sustainable enterprise. How do you maximize profits while also helping people and the planet as well? How do you put these three things together? And I do hope to continue to work with OSU in that particular area. I think it's very important. Oklahoma's behind in that area, and it's something that we need to pay attention to.
One of your books, Beyond Leadership, The Beacon and the Great Rock, examines some 9 principles of good leadership. But unlike most discussions of leadership and business ethics, it combines digital works of art and haiku poetry. So how did you get the idea for your book?
Well, this was just a creative leap, if you will. I was doing the digital art at the time. I was also working in the general area of leadership. I'd been through Leadership Oklahoma, and that had a big impact on me. It's an important area. And so I decided to do a content analysis of like the 100 top leadership books that are out there, you know. And so came up with these principles and decided, well, let's just do something wacky. And I love haikus. And so I tried to take the basic core ideas from these 100 different books and my own research as well. And how do you communicate that? Well, maybe I can do images. And then how do I link the images to the ideas? Well, maybe I can do it with haikus. And so I put this weird book together, and this is a self-published book. No self-respecting publisher would ever publish this particular book, and so it was a fun experience.
Well, I enjoyed it very much.
Did you?
Yes. What you dedicated your book to digital artists who were struggling to have their original images recognized as works of art, and I'm wondering, is that kind of a hotly debated issue?
It is. Digital art is and one of the issues with digital art is that because cameras are so user-friendly now, anybody can go out and take digital pictures. You can, because you have Photoshop, you can put it in Photoshop and you don't have the whole developing thing and so forth. And in part, some of the tactile part of it, of the holding of the works as you go on and create your images and so forth, has gone, and so it is simply not looked upon as the same level as oils or as a sculpture or something. It's very hard to sell the same prices as you would sell an original work in oil and so forth. So, but it's still, you've got to have the composition, you've got to have the subject matter. The printing is still not necessarily that easy as well. How do you present it? You have all these artistic issues as well, and so digital artists, it is difficult.
And I'm trying to understand the process a little better too, because at first, when I ran across the term, I was thinking it's kind of computer generated. You're playing with colors and patterns on a computer.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what we're talking about? And then transferring them to a canvas after you've got a composition that you like?
Well, you can go directly from just work on the computer and just to start with a blank screen and do it that way. And some of my works are that way, particularly the optical art that I do starts with a blank computer screen. But you can also start with a photograph. And I have other series of images that where you'll take multiple photographs and you'll begin to combine them, manipulate them, and work with them to come up with very, sometimes very abstract, sometimes very interesting, unusual images, if you will. So there's various ways of approaching it.
You began experimenting, was it around 2003? Did we mention the date already, with digital art?
Well, it was 2000 when my wife actually gave me the first crude right. camera, you know, and printer and so forth. But it's come so far so quickly. It's amazing, the difference.
Well, one of the expressions that you used to describe your particular style was symphonic expressionistic art. And I wonder if you can explain
Yeah.
that.
I was trying to think in terms of how do you market your art? And I've taught courses on marketing of the arts, as a matter of fact. And one of the things that's clear is you need to spend 50% of your time marketing yourself. And so I was trying to approach it from that perspective and trying to come up with, well, how do I do this and interesting names for what I do? And so I spent a couple of years and I would create images while listening to music. And so that's the symphonic, and it was more expressionistic type of art. And so ended up with compositions. One was called Bolero, for example. So I was listening to the classic Ravel Bolero and then creating this image as I listened to it, trying to capture how the music felt in the particular image.
So was that kind of something you experimented with early on, playing the music while you were manipulating
That was
the photograph?
probably in the first, I'd say maybe third of my real art semi-career, if you will.
Can you take us through your process a bit when you're creating art and listening to music?
Yeah, it's basically very emotional, and so you're trying to feel the music and how you're experiencing it in the very fibers of your being, and then you are, for myself anyway, taking and these images would start with photographs, and you would go into the various parts of Photoshop and begin to bend and change and manipulate the photograph to see if you can, and then putting photographs together, to see if you can capture visually the emotions that one feels. And of course you do it through color and movement and so forth, and how it's composed. And so it's just trying to blend the two together, kind of a synesthesia, if you will, as one creates it.
Were there certain pieces of music that maybe didn't trigger a strong enough emotion? Did it really depend on the strength of the emotion, or was it a sort of more serendipitous than that?
Well, of course, you tend to gravitate to music you like. And there's actually research on what period of time in your life do you particularly like the music from that period. And as it turns out, it's in your early 20s. And music in your early 20s tends to be the music that you like the average person in the rest of their lives. And so in that time of my life, it was the late 60s and early 70s. And so music from that time period, Beatles, for example, Carole King, those types of artists are ones whose music I would often listen to and then try to emulate.
So those would arouse strong emotions.
Yeah, exactly.
But in your book, at least, you had some really diverse musical genres and that you utilize to produce your art. Do you find that they really have very different visual impacts depending on the genre?
Yeah, it's the Bolero piece, for example, with the buildup of emotion and so forth is one. Then you have Carole King, It's Too Late. And it's a very interesting process of trying to match the idea and the title of the song to what the image is. And so the image I did for It's Too Late is of actually I took photographs of rose petals and then put those together and created kind of a canyon, and then there's a river going through it, and then it kind of wanders off into infinity, and it's like it's too late for this relationship or something. So it's a really a creative effort as you're trying to combine these very different sets of ideas.
There's a theory of creativity that invokes what they call the 7 I's for the creative process, and one of them is inspiration. And we've sort of talked about how music can be a source of inspiration. Can you talk maybe a bit about imagery? That's the second one. And I know we're talking really in general here because you're starting with photographs, presumably, but also seeing pictures in your mind evoked by the music, perhaps. Can you talk a bit about imagery and digital art?
Well, My goal was to, particularly during that phase, I took a lot of photos of flowers and of leaves and so forth. And they have incredible textures to them. And so the goal then was to take those textures and so forth, and often I would create landscapes out of them. And so it was very surrealistic. And so the goal was to create surrealistic landscapes using the textures and so forth from flowers and leaves, etc. So the goal was to take the imagery from the natural environment, but then put it in a way that hadn't been seen before. And that's always the goal of creativity, is to have something that people have not seen before, and so they go, oh, what is that? And so they begin to process the information. And that's what separates, the great classic artists, and not to put myself in that category by any means, but they really started whole genres. You think of Picasso and Cubism, for example. People had never seen that kind of idea until that whole group. But lots of people have done it since, but it certainly doesn't have the impact. And so that was the goal of that particular stage of artistic efforts, was to try to do something that people had not seen before and create images that were unusual.
And thank you, because that sort of foregrounded for me. I mean, we hadn't articulated it, but you're taking these pictures specifically, and then for the purpose of manipulating them later. And so not sort
exactly.
of working with ready-made.
Right, exactly. These are, I can't tell you how many cameras I've had now as you go out and try to improve the quality of the photographs and so forth to improve what you can do.
How important would you say intuition is to your process? That's another one of the I's.
Yeah, intuition is huge. Intuition, and actually I've written about it as well in other books on decision making, and I've argued that in decision making you have to use both intuition, emotion, and reason. There are three separate things that impact you. Intuition, for me, is kind of the sum of what your body knows. And your body learns. And it's really almost at the spinal cord level, if you will. It's kind of emotional learning that goes on. And it will tell you a lot. And you can tell how you react to something just whether you're leaning forward or backward from it. And as I've gotten older, in fact, I've learned to listen more and more to the intuition, because with experience you learn a lot, that you can be fooled by rational thinking. Some of the worst decisions I've ever made were after I created spreadsheets and did all this rational type of stuff. The emotions are necessary, though, because that's kind of the driver behind things. So intuition is absolutely important, and so it's kind of freeing your mind and not doing a lot of thinking, but just feeling as you're going along.
What is your incubation period for a work of art?
It's often just spontaneous. I've often said that I look for happy coincidences, and so you'll start with and just start putting images together, and you begin to see if things form out of it. And so you're building and working on happenstance and luck and coincidence, and just building from there. So in some cases, images come together very quickly. Sometimes I'll find I work on them for weeks. And so you never know exactly, and that's part of the fun of it. You never know exactly what will happen. Now that's particularly for the works I call floriscapes, and floriscapes are where I combine images of flowers and leaves and create landscapes out of them. When I'm doing optical art, which is a completely different type of way of viewing the world, I go in with a pretty clear picture of what I'm trying to do. And so you're trying to create, for example, what are called Necker cubes. And these are cubes, and you can put them together and they'll suddenly invert on you. You'll see them coming out at you, and they'll go away from you. that type of thing. And so you're literally trying to create that effect, or you're trying to create a moire where you have a whole series of black lines, and then all of a sudden you'll see those and your eyes will start kind of going crazy with it. And so you're deliberately trying to create a particular effect.
Again, manipulating photographs. To get
Well,
that.
with the optical
With the
art,
optical.
I do not start with
Okay.
photographs. That starts
Okay.
with a blank computer screen.
Okay.
So it's a very different approach for the optical art.
How does improvisation tie into your creative process? I think we've sort of addressed it, but
Yeah, it's looking for happy accidents is clearly improvisation to me, but you have to be talented, perhaps is the right word, enough to be able to spin off of it and to make sense of the happy accidents, if you will, and to be able to carry off in a new direction if it appears. And so improvisation is absolutely a critical part of what happens.
who did you show some of your first digital artworks to?
Well, my wife, most certainly, who is my biggest and best critic, if you will. I recall I was actually having some copies made at a local coffee shop, and there was a woman who I didn't know there, and I was showing the image to the guy who was going to copy it, and she looked at it and said, "Oh, I really like that." And so, it's again happy accidents like that, and you start showing them to friends and just seeing, what their reactions are. The very first thrill was I went to Tulsa and actually got in a gallery, and it was like, wow, and I came back,
Which is the MA Doran Gallery, is that right?
No, it was, in fact, it's no longer in existence. Now, I wish I could have gotten in the MA Doran Gallery, but no, it's another one.
Uh-huh. But yeah, that's an exciting thing to come back and say.
Yeah, it's like, wow, somebody actually wants my work.
So when you've had a couple of solo or group shows, is that right?
I've had a number of shows. The most recent one was at Friends University. I guess it was 2 years ago now. I had that. But the biggest show I ever did was at the Oklahoma Science Museum. Actually, it was called the Kirkpatrick Center then. And it was a show of 40 optical artworks. So it was a major effort creating 40 works, printing them,
yes.
having them, stretched. These were all on canvas. And that was in 2004, and they're still on display now. There's a show that's going on now where they took my work with Escher's work and Vassarelli's work. It's like Mowen, Escher, Vassarelli. Wow!
You're in great company there.
And called Mind Games. And so you can go see it as we speak right now, as a matter of fact.
Right, and we're going to see a couple of your optical pieces. And this is in Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City, yeah.
Because of their ties to music, do you ever display the expressionist or symphonic expressionistic works in combination with like audio? Or have you thought about that?
Yes, as a matter of fact. I did work with the chairman of the music department. This was probably 4 or 5 years ago now, something like that. And where I took one of his compositions and then actually used a program to take some of my art. In fact, this picture was one of them, as a matter of fact, an image that we'll see. And then had it move in relationship in time with the music. And then so we had a concert, and he put up a large white screen and had the quartet actually behind the screen playing the music while I projected the image on top of the screen. And so you could see the musicians, just their shadows basically on the screen, with the images moving as the music moved. And so it was a very interesting experiment that we engaged in. So a fun deal.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Do you create only originals with your digital art, or do you issue what we would call limited prints?
They are generally limited prints, and I've trying to decide how many to make. You know, that's always a question. Most recently, and for the past 5+ years, it's been in editions of 5. So keep it very small, trying to keep it scarce and rare.
Right.
Right. And so, plus it's hard to sell more than 5 as well. So that's, it's been limited editions.
Do you have any galleries currently?
I do not. I went through a period where I worked very hard to get in galleries, and where it was in galleries in Oklahoma City, Denver, the Scottsdale area, San Antonio, sold some art in Chicago. The best year, I'm giving more information than you probably want, the best year I sold about 20 images and broke even. And so it just shows how difficult it is. And so went through that and basically decided that I really am a full-time professor. I've got my research to do, my students to help, and classes to teach, most importantly classes to teach. And so let's go back and get back where I should be. Not that I stopped doing those things before, but it was time to get back. And so it's now much more of a hobby, I would describe it. And so still create some images. Most of them I will donate or give away to various organizations, including the library and the music department and museum. And I find that very gratifying. The other thing is you just want your work seen if possible. You want to try to help people. You want to give them something that's pleasant that they enjoy looking at. And so you don't want to create things and just have them, in a back room somewhere.
Right. I understand you are, with your retirement, moving out of state. Where will you be going?
My wife and I will be moving to Santa Fe, New Mexico. In fact, the move is less than 2 weeks off now, so it's coming up very quickly.
And any particular plans for your time out there?
Well, I'll continue to do some writing. I plan on, one of the reasons for going to Santa Fe is a very active art scene out there, and so I plan on continuing to do some art. But I really view it as a big adventure. It's time to spread your wings and try some different things perhaps. And so I'm deliberately not making a lot of specific plans right now, other than we do have a home that we built there. It needs landscaping. I enjoy moving rocks and digging holes, and so I'll be doing a lot of landscaping this summer for sure.
In terms of the kind of writing you're looking at, are you planning on continuing your academic writing or going in a different direction? Or
it will probably be moving in a direction of writing for, let's say, the intelligent layperson, the public. I've at one point had a newspaper column for a Journal Record in Oklahoma City, and actually had a radio program at one time called Reaching Their Market. And so that's that type of writing for to try to communicate academic articles to a mass audience is very interesting to me. I'm working with Kiplinger's right now on some ideas as well, and they've done an interview on some research and that I've done on actually gambling and investing, and what are the characteristics of gamblers and investors. Do they have things in common? They do. And so that's I see myself doing that as far as writing goes, probably.
Looking back over your career so far, what has been one of the high points for you?
Well, I think back, the first major article I had published was exciting and a high point, certainly. The first trade book that I published with Simon & Schuster called Judgment Calls, High Stakes Decisions in a Risky World, extremely exciting. Also, there's some downsides, like doing interviews at 4 a.m. in the morning on a radio station that's sent out to to people all over the country that are still asleep.
Yes.
So, but
What is that experience like?
it's very tiring, but mostly, you're trying to be halfway intelligent, but also talk to people in a way that they can understand the ideas in a very straightforward way. So it's a different challenge for sure.
It's all live.
It's all live, yeah. You're struggling to be coherent, particularly at that time in the morning.
And how about a low point, maybe, as you look back?
Well, there's no doubt that the low point was, of course, I did my PhD work in psychology, social psychology, and I did my dissertation and then wrote it up and sent it to one of the major psychology journals for publication. And so I got the reviews back, and the editor in a letter to me said, don't read the reviews. They're so bad that I don't want to hurt your feelings, but you can tell that they took it seriously because they were so long. And so that was highly discouraging. But I took the same ideas basically, which actually were just too advanced for these stupid reviewers. Of course, were tops in their field, but that was my reaction then. And recast them and redid it in more of a marketing business setting, and then published it in a major business journal. And so, but that I have to say was, and I've never read the reviews, I never will. We'll go to Santa Fe. They have a ceremony kind of each year in the summer called Zozobra, I believe is the name of it.
It's Zozobra.
Zozobra.
Yes.
Where you can take something and throw it in the fire and expunge it from your life, and that's what I'm going to do with these reviews that I've never read.
That's a great story, and it's sort of there must be a cluster of traits in your 3M model that are covered by that. But it also reminds me of just how people can choose to deal with something that's an obstacle and turn it into, just get better, set the bar higher, and attack something from a different.
Yeah, your academics, like many, many things, a lot of it's perseverance, and the whole world of publishing, is a tough world. As a reviewer of journal articles, you are looking for the tiniest flaw, and you're looking to reject things, not to accept things. And so on the other end of it, when you're getting this type of thing, it's a difficult process to get through, but you just have to reach in, pull out a handful of gut, and drive on.
We have some pieces of yours here in special collections at the library, and you've also donated some pieces to the OSU Museum of Art, will be the Museum of Art. How does it feel to be leaving artwork as well as books and articles in a place you've worked at for so long?
It's a terrific feeling. It's like you're leaving a part of yourself with OSU. OSU has been incredibly important to me, and my wife as well is also a professor. We've been here 33 years.
Let's just say a little bit about what field she teaches in, etc.
My wife, like myself, is a transplanted academician. She received her PhD in economics at Arizona State, came here as in the business economics area, and then the accounting department suggested that maybe she could be a managerial accounting professor. And she thought about it, and managerial accounting is just economics in an accounting kind of guise, if you will. And so she moved into accounting and has had a very successful career as an accounting professor. And so we've raised 2 kids here and who are off on their own and off our payroll and doing very well. And so it's been a great 33 years here.
Is there anything that we forgot to talk about, or anything else you'd like to add?
Well, one of the things that I particularly want to add is the terrific colleagues I've had, how well I've been treated at Oklahoma State. I've been fortunate to have terrific department heads, terrific colleagues to work with. Oklahoma State truly is a university that's built on friendships and in relationships. And I hear occasionally people want to downplay that and focus a lot more on we're this great research institution, which is true, but we should never forget our roots as this place that's a people organization.
Well, we're going to take a look at your artwork here. Okay, so we're looking at one of your paintings here. Would you like to talk about it a little?
Yeah, this work is called Rotations. I originally created this for the work I did for the Oklahoma Science Museum and the exhibition I did there. This is number 2 of 5, as a matter of fact. What this illustrates is if you stand about 10 feet away from it and you have to look at it and just kind of stare at it for 5 to 10 seconds, and what you'll find is that the circles will begin to rotate literally, and you'll see them begin to move. And it's a perceptual process, and it's built upon how your optical system works and how the nerves fire and then become inhibited and so forth. And so it's a classic optical art piece.
Great. And how about this piece?
Well, this is called The Table. And we mentioned Necker cubes before, and the idea that you can put together these three-dimensional looking cubes, and you put them side by side, and then if you kind of do it right, they will begin to move, and you'll see that one cube all of a sudden will be moving toward you, then it will be moving away from you, and you can never quite get a fix on it in terms of exactly what you have. And so again, it's a classic. The Necker cubes, in fact, are associated most with Victor Vasarely, who was really one of the fathers, or the father of the optical art movement in the 1940s, 50s, that time period. He just passed away in the 1990s. And as one of the very popular type of visual illusions that he did.
Well, that's really neat. Thank you so much for your time today, John.
Well, I've enjoyed it, Julie. Thank you very much.